Welcome to Beside Ourselves, a podcast on AI adoption for business by the Beside Partners.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you listen to us. Welcome to the latest episode of the Beside Ourselves podcast. And for those watching on video, we'll see that actually we're trying something a little bit different this time.
Yeah.
We are actually beside ourselves.
We
We're both together in London. Hello, Theo.
Beside each other. Hey, Giles, look at that.
That's amazing, isn't it?
In person. Yes. Forget about all the digital stuff. In person is always much better. The nice view of King's Cross behind us.
Yes, if
Brilliant.
people can see it, it might be blown out a bit in the video.
Yeah.
But anyway, lovely to see you in person.
Yeah.
And how are your holidays?
Holidays were great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I remember kind of recording the episode before we went with a review of the first half year and thinking about what will happen next year. Mulled over that, came back, and the whole world seems to have changed,
to have melted down, doesn't it? So,
but in the meantime, you had a nice holiday as well?
Yes, likewise. Yeah, it was nice to have a few weeks off and recuperate. And as you say, back with a bang, quite literally.
With a bang, yes.
So today's topic, we were going to talk about all that news, really, which I guess is the kind of doomsday scenario of the AI is going to take over the world and hack everything and bring it down.
Yes. Working title: Is it time to freak out, or is it time to do something?
Exactly. So we're going to have a chat about that. We're going to summarise that, and I guess share our thoughts on that, and as usual, try to pull it back to what that means for our clients in particular. So, so for those that have been living under a rock, then obviously, I think we talked about the whole Anthropic models that were released and then pulled and stuff before we went away. But obviously, the big news that came out while we were away was that a number of models have, during testing, have gone out and hacked into other systems.
Jailbreak.
Yes. So, in theory, working in their own, and this is while they were actively trying to test this sort of functionality to see if it would work. Yeah. In theory, in a safe zone, the actual AI managed to break out and go off and hack other systems. Yes. Now, interestingly, after the first one came out, and then there was a lot of subsequent models that came out. Now, call me cynical. I'm not sure. Is that
cynical?
Yeah. Is that a kind of, actually, our model needs to be seen to be as dangerous as all the other models. So all of a sudden, it just seems quite convenient that all of a sudden all these different models are suddenly, actually ours are doing that. Yeah. So I guess the big question is, as you sum up, is now the time that we should really be freaking out about AI?
Well, I suppose, is it an element of promotion marketing in light of the IPOs? That's one question for sure. The other one is it time? Let's kind of rephrase the freaking out. Is it time to go into a mode of safety first, where we reprioritize how we and how our clients, how businesses think about AI? Is it about time to drive adoption, or is it time to take a step back and worry about security first? And then I suppose there's also a question, in practical terms, what should businesses and business leaders be doing about this? I mean, freaking out, obviously, in business risk terms, is a way of saying it's time to change gears.
Yes.
And I think that maybe we are. Let's first start with the first one, because I will call you cynical. However, I will agree with you. Is it your take that there is an element of promotion on this with the AI?
Almost definitely. There's the classic, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And it's like, there is obviously historically this drive of one-upmanship. Yeah. And therefore, there's an argument that says, well, actually, our models seem to be inferior because we're not able to do this sort of stuff. So, and they're always kind of to me, it was just very convenient that within a matter of weeks, you suddenly had them all queuing up going, well, ours have done that as well. Ours have done that as well. Which, and I'm not saying they haven't. I mean, the flip side of that is to say, well, actually, did they know that they'd done that and they just decided not to share that? Again, I'm not making any accusations, so but it just seems very convenient that all these models suddenly come out. But there's clearly, and this obviously comes back to when Anthropic launched, haven't actually launched it. There was the one where they said, actually, we need to be aware these models are capable of doing stuff, and that's obviously still that model's still being held back, and there's obviously lots of internal testing going on. So there's obviously, we've known for months that the capabilities there. I guess it's the first time we've publicly seen that capability out in the wild,
Yeah.
so to speak, although it shouldn't be, because obviously everybody's saying this should be closed testing environments. I think
it was supposed to be.
it was supposed to
yeah.
be, but obviously ultimately wasn't.
Yeah.
I guess the big question is going to be, and it all comes, it's been there for a while, isn't it? The whole thing around regulation, around AI and stuff like that. And, what can we do to stop it or control it
Yeah.
if we can? So again, I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
The first thing that I remember when I was unpacking the news on holiday, but I really had to go deep into that. The first thing I noticed was the reaction from the CEO of Hugging Face, which was a company that got hacked.
Yeah.
And instead of kind of blowing holding calls, like, oh, I'm going to sue the world and everything, was kind of like, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And I was freaked out by that. I mean, obviously, Hugging Face is also a within the entire AI ecosystem. Obviously, they publish all the models and everything. So I could see that there is a I don't want to say camaraderie, I want to say, but basically an element of acknowledging that all this agentic hacking would be cool.
Yes.
But it just felt like such a strange thing to say from somebody who is ostensibly the victim of hacking to come up and say, that was really cool.
Yeah,
that was really strange. So for sure, there is an element of that. And perhaps there is also, apart from the promotion and in light of the IPOs and everything, there is an element of comparing with the Chinese open weight models out there that are not very far behind from the frontier ones. But to be able to show that American frontier models are so much still ahead kind of gives us some time to adapt. Sometimes to kind of like, make sure that we use these models maybe defensively, which goes back into, is this perhaps a bid by the industry to create the revenues that they need to sustain the valuations that they're after?
Well, exactly.
So if they found that perhaps all the agentic workflows do not yet create the enterprise revenue that they were expecting, maybe, just maybe, selling the models as defense mechanisms will.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you hear all the...
Follow the money.
Yeah, follow the money. It's interesting you hear all the government, but, the fear about, governments using AI in warfare.
Yes.
Are we really standing on the precipice of actually there will be an AI warfare, but it's basically an industrial warfare, i.e. where you are using AI defensively on your IT infrastructure to stop other AIs trying to attack it. Maybe we won't be using it on the human battlefield yet, but actually there's obviously, are we gearing up for a sort of internet? Are we having the first internet war, I guess, is what we're looking at?
It's a good way of putting it, to up the ante. It wasn't freaking out.
Yeah, exactly.
But absolutely, I think it absolutely is driving towards. I remember it was not very many years ago, a year or so, a couple of years ago, that I was in a conference and there was somebody from the NATO Innovation Fund, and they were saying that we are treating, apart from the cyber domain being the fourth, the fifth, the sixth theater of war, they're basically saying that there is a frontier everywhere.
Yeah.
So this was kind of like back in the days when the war in the Ukraine was obviously starting, and they were saying that every hospital, every business, every cash point, every bank is potentially something that can be a target for sabotage, for cyber attack, as part of this wider theater of war. And yes, of course, AI is going to play a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think because it's going to be the speed, isn't it? And I think that's the key thing that came out of it, the speed at which these things operate, the speed at which AI can operate. And even the reports that were coming out from Hugging Face and stuff, it was all like, oh yeah, we suddenly saw spikes in traffic. And actually, coming from the other side where the model's going, again, that's how they first detected it, was suddenly all these processes spinning up because the AI was able to make decisions in nano microseconds or whatever, go, actually, well, we need to do this, I need to spin this stuff up. So, actually, whereas historically cybercrime's been driven largely by, humans, albeit with obviously servers and stuff they've got that are going around trying everything. Once you're almost taking the human out of the loop and you're allowing the AI to make those decisions, the only thing that really can react fast enough is going to be out. So yeah, exactly to the point I made about, I think you are going to see, the only way we're going to be able to defend against these threats is by using AI in a defensive mechanism. And I think, as you said, that's going to open a whole area of the industry.
There is an element of convenience over there in terms of kind of a commercial reality that the big frontier labs are aiming for. But to bring it down from that, from the defensive part, and that's obviously what did happen. is this now then the time? Is it the point in time for the industry to shift gears? To kind of rephrase it. Is it time to freak out? Is this a time where we shift gears and we actually look at AI not so much as a way to achieve efficiencies and to rewire workflows and the rest of it, but as a way to drive defenses? Is this a pivotal point in time in the the roadmap of AI adoption?
Well, I think so. I mean, you would assume that all, the traditional providers of those defenses, in those sort of CDNs or those cloud environments that you push your web traffic, you imagine they're obviously already looking at how they can operate. We've historically had things like denial of service attacks and things like that, which are obviously looking to overload servers. From a network traffic perspective, these AI things are going to be very similar. They're going to be, like swarms of things trying to get in and hitting these things. So again, they are going to be the first lines of defense. And therefore, you'd be looking to, there's two areas you'd be looking. One is looking to the AI providers themselves to see what defensive mechanisms they can offer. As you said, that's going to be a whole revenue stream for them. But then it's also the traditional, infrastructure providers, cloud computing providers, to see actually, okay, well, what tools and stuff can they make available that people can bolt in? Because that's really the only way you're going to be able to do it. Yes, banks are going to be doing stuff with their physical network, stuff like that. But actually, for most people, it's going to be like, actually, how can the cloud infrastructure do this? Even down to things like, mobile phone manufacturers and stuff like that, because you say every device is going to become an endpoint which could be targeted. So you can see, your Googles and your Apples and people like that, and Samsungs are going to be looking at how they can actually harm physical devices up. I think there's going to be, again, it's like everything. People will see it as a commercial opportunity, and it probably is a massive commercial opportunity. It's now,
probably is, yeah.
And it's going to be the next big race, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was reading a few, and we mentioned at the beginning that there's a whole lot of noise levels being massively increased in the wake of this news. And part of the analysis that we're hearing now is that AI is also helping not just on the purely digital domain, but also in the way that attackers might kind of go after the weak link in the entire security apparatus, which is the human. Things like you get your voice out in a podcast, in a YouTube, whatever it is, that can be sampled, and somebody can kind of like you pretend to be you, call up and try to get access through your simulated voice. I for one will be telling people that I work with, people like in my family and everything, to be aware of this, because my voice is out on a public broadcast and it can be sampled like that.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, that is one of the things to do at a personal level. If if you're into those channels. And another thing that I heard was that the race that you mentioned gets a very different dimension. Apparently, one of the ways that the authorities could pick on these attackers was the fact that you needed a large number of people to orchestrate any serious attack. And these people, by and large, would have weak links. One of them would just basically get a taste for the high life. They would take off somewhere. They would be picked up at the airport. There would be, somebody would kind of like go and buy a flashy car. Something like that, right? But now the same level of attack can be orchestrated by one or two people with a swarm of agents that are not going to be that easy to pick up. So all of a sudden, the reaction area for the authorities actually becomes very different. So that race gets reconfigured. So from my perspective, when all these things come on board, AI does change the entire security apparatus. So I would say that indeed this is the point where if somebody was to ask me what is the thing that you should be doing with AI first, it's not going to be train your people to create images in PowerPoints and rewire workflows and automate this and the other. The first thing that you need to do before you go out on the attack for efficiencies would be to protect your base. This is the point where I think the narrative changes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, people thinking about that sort of more defensive line and stuff like that. And I think, again, I guess if we cycle it back to, what does this mean to SMEs? Our typical customers say, we've made this fear, don't panic, Mr. Mannering, for the British people who listen to us, on the Dad's Army reference. But the whole thing around, but okay, well, what does this mean? And we're not saying people shouldn't use AI. It's just actually it's just another consideration in the mix. Actually, it's like, yes, as you said, there's all the things we've done historically around internal efficiencies and stuff like that, but actually looking at your infrastructure and stuff like that. So, what would we suggest, or what would you think in terms of if we, picking up that point, what should, if I'm running an SME, who should I be speaking to in the first instance? How should I be? What should I be thinking about in terms of that?
I reckon that for the next few months at least, there's going to be increased activity, increased conversation about the information security, the entire security apparatus of an organization. All the basics must be ticked off. Again, they must be cross-checked. So any company that's listening now, that is definitely the thing to check in. Anyone in management, anyone in leadership, make sure that the basics are covered. So 2FA, password managers, hardening defenses in terms of all the systems that you use, network access, all this, just the important stuff. Make sure you train your staff on the basics. So if you are ISO 27001 certified, something like that, look at the certification. Don't just tick the boxes. Make sure that people know what they do. That's going to go a long way into protecting you, because when the surface attack area increases, it means that when they attack, the number of attacks increases. You don't have to really completely fend off every attack. You just need to make sure that you are harder to breach than other people.
Yes.
And then once we kind of level up the security, everybody's going to benefit. So taking care of the basics is definitely the place to start.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. And I think, obviously, if people, most people are using cloud providers to provide their email infrastructure, Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, etc., etc. So, actually, that's a reassuring thing, because obviously, those guys themselves will be working to harden that. That's so incoming vectors like that. But as we said before, the endpoints, the weakest things in the chain are the humans and the devices that you as a company own and manage. So it's actually, it's just best practice around that, as you say, making sure people are aware of that, making sure things are patched and up to date. That's a classic thing that always gets forgotten.
Because all the defenders are going to be patching all the systems for all the bugs that the AI is finding. Unless you actually apply the patches,
you are exactly
exposed.
Exactly. So so I think and I think the other thing is looking at your IT infrastructure and thinking about where the weak points might be. So as I said, you could assume that, Microsoft and those sort of people are going to be fairly robust, but, think about things like your website. What do you host your website on? Are you using a reputable provider there? Asking questions about what level of defenses do they have? Are there things that you could be turning on your web host? You could do that. Again, if you're using one of the big providers, again, I'm not particularly, things like Squarespace and stuff like that, or even WordPress.com, you'd assume that's in there. But if you've got like a self-hosted WordPress website, again, are you patching that? What plugins are you using? All that sort of stuff, as well as just looking for those sort of weak points. Now, obviously, your website, may well not be connected to your infrastructure. But, if your customers are coming to the website, if your customers are sending details to you for your website, if it's it is a way for, there to be exploits.
It definitely is, because it is, by definition, your website is something that is open to the internet.
Exactly.
So it is incoming information. It is a way for a potential attacker to come in. But you mentioned earlier, that's a big point. You mentioned earlier, reputable suppliers for everything.
Yeah.
I think that's another big consideration. I think we're going to see a move towards accreditations.
Yep.
I suspect that there's going to be a wave for certifications for ISOs, for 42001, the AI equivalent, the AI equivalent, SOC 2. I think that there's going to be more emphasis placed on being able to prove that you adhere to certain criteria. And everything. So that's going to happen a lot. So I can see a period of the industry realigning along those lines, along kind of like, rounding up the wagon, so to speak, kind of placing more emphasis on the defense aspect of things, at least for the foreseeable. And that's a good thing. That's kind of like something that should happen now, as there is all that upheaval. And once we're past that, and we're all, we've got a certain uniform level of protection, then we can go back into the old fashioned thing about efficiencies and creativity and human-centric AI and all these kind of things. But there is a period in front of us that's going to be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, and I think regardless of whether you're ISO 27001 or not, I think, this is probably something that needs to sit on your corporate risk register and you need to be aware of and manage it and cognizant of. So if it's not, that would be the key takeaway.
Yes.
Put it on there and have a think about it. So
Yeah.
Cool. I should check the time. Oh, well, I think we've been going for our sort of usual
20 minutes.
20 minutes. I don't know if there's any final points you want to share.
I'm going to bring one about regulation, which is still missing now. It's something that obviously will become more and more important. And I think that governments are about to step in. There is the consortium, international consortium being formed for AI safety and security. I think that all these things are good, but they're a bit slow.
Mm-hmm.
I would also like to see businesses press for this. Now, it is not a comfortable space for many businesses to press for more regulation. Instinctively, all this bureaucracy, paperwork is not something that businesses are friendly with. But I'd like to see businesses press for it because the buying power that businesses, enterprises have got collectively is significant.
Yeah.
If they press for regulation, I think that all these promises and policies and plans that the Frontier Labs are bringing forward, they're going to make them actually adopt them.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a good thing. We do need that regulation. It's not, as I said, it's not always something that we as business people like to see, but in this case, safety first.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think, to extend that point in terms of, and what I just said previously about the risk register, it's like, I would be saying to people, asking questions of your suppliers, asking questions of, what is your position on this as well? Not just kind of asking in terms of that, but actually trying to understand what everybody's doing and their take on that. Because, okay, I've said about Microsoft and stuff like that, but, you can't just assume that because they're a big name, understand where your exposure is and stuff like that. So, there we go. Quite I don't know if we've made people feel better or whether we've actually caused more.
I hope that we kind of injected an appropriate level of urgency into the situation, giving people something to think about in terms of empowerment, things that you can do.
Okay, hopefully so. Well, if anybody's got any thoughts on that, then as usual, then please feel free to share and stuff with us.
Yeah.
So this is, I didn't say, this is episode 19, isn't it? So our next episode is episode 20, which we did talk about doing a Q&A episode. Mm-hmm. So I know we've mentioned this the last couple of episodes, but if you have got some questions around AI, business adoption, basically anything you want, I suppose, any questions, happy to take them, then let us know. Stick them in the comments wherever you're watching this video. There'll be contact email address you can use. Hook us up on LinkedIn or whatever. We'll be putting out probably a request as well there over the coming weeks and try to actually go through some questions people have. So any sort of areas of interest or things you want us to cover in more detail, let us know. But until then, lovely to see you.
Great to see you in person, yes.
And we are, as we said before, quite literally beside ourselves.
Yes.
And we look forward to seeing you again on the next episode. Thanks.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Beside Ourselves. Don't forget to send us your questions via the comments or the email address in the description. For further information or to discuss an upcoming project, please visit besidepartners.com.